And start. Hi, Barbara.
Hey there. How's
How's
it
it going?
going?
All right.
Going good
Sorry, I'm
here.
I'm late. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I better check my schedule.
Oh, I've done that. I can relate. You get all involved and it's like, oh yeah, I've got this calendar. Got to deal with it.
Yeah. You live in Wisconsin?
Yeah, we have a nice blanket of snow occurring right now. So
Oh,
yes,
what part?
I'm near Milwaukee, so
Oh,
I'm
okay,
not
yeah.
up north.
I
So
have a
yeah.
lot of cousins in Milwaukee. You look in the phone book, there's a lot of Kerns.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah,
been
I'll have
there,
to,
been there a lot.
now I'll see it all the time now that you mentioned it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, it's yeah, kind of a bad day weather-wise here, but what are you gonna do? It's just part of the life here. So
I
yeah.
guess so. Um, and we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and I
Amazing
think,
health transformation, huh?
oh my gosh, yes. And it was a long, long journey. So my big goal is not to have anyone suffer, as long as I did, right? Or be told, over and over by doctors that you're doing well and you're fine, and you're really not, and I know Al Russ talks about that too. They sit there and say, well, exercise more, eat less, things like that, and not addressing the root cause issues. So, yeah, and so my mission is to just be a story of hope, and that it's not too late. And with small,
Mm.
simple steps, you can get this done. Like it can happen. And I did my transformation I'm 57. I'll be 58 in June, and I didn't even start working out. Exercise was one of the last pieces of my journey. And I didn't even start working out until I was, 55, just after I turned 55. And people think, sometimes when they see my videos on Facebook and things like that, they think I've been working out forever. And it's like, no, I was never athletic. I was the last kid picked out on teams growing up. So it's been fun. That's been a fun part of my journey, is the exercise piece. Now that I don't have body-wide joint pain and I have energy. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
So tell us how it started. You had a long history of just nagging conditions that were from mild to serious, but were a big mess for, I guess, a lot of your adult life. Or when did we first start
Oh,
complaining about health problems?
yes, yes. Actually, it was a long time ago. I was in my mid 30s when I started to have some fatigue. And so I
Mm.
went to the conventional doctor, and they did find I was hypothyroid, did not check for any antibodies or autoimmune conditions. I was prescribed Synthroid, and I'd gotten a little bit of relief, but not really. But my TSH, the common test that they do, and they usually only do TSH. If you're lucky, you'll get a T4 done too. It came out in the normal range. So they just said, well, everybody gets tired when they get older, and you're fine. And I'm like, I'm not fine. And so the fatigue was my main chronic symptom for over 15 years. And then I started to develop female problems too in my mid 30s. And that wasn't addressed properly either. And I ended up with a hysterectomy at 39, and I was married in my mid 30s. And so that took away the opportunity to have children. So that was a big emotional roller coaster as well. And meanwhile, I'm still tired on top of all of this, and I'm having poor sleep, brain fog, my mood imbalances, body wide joint pain, like I mentioned before. And I kept getting told that you're fine. And loved ones would say, oh, you're just fine. Everybody gets tired, when they get older. And it's such an invisible thing. And then I finally turned over some rocks with different providers, and Lyme disease was diagnosed. Hashimoto's thyroiditis was diagnosed. I was also diagnosed with a lot of extra heavy metals in my body, more than anyone should have. And I have genetic detox issues that was tested. So that was important finding to know. So it was great to have all these answers, right? So I finally got them, and I was treated for them, but I was trying to supplement my way out of my mess. And I really wasn't getting great results yet. I had some improvement, but not that much. And it wasn't until I adapted the primal lifestyle, I became a primal health coach, the primal lifestyle, and also included mindset practices, lifestyle, nutrition, and exercise, all four of those pillars, that's when the magic happened. That's when everything changed for me. And it's what I do on the daily that makes a difference in my life, even to this day, even though I'm treated properly and things like that. If I don't keep those things in check, then things will start to flare up, and the wheels start falling off the bus. And yeah, so I feel fantastic now. I was on 2 blood pressure medicines before. I'm off both of them. And my blood pressure is better now than when I was on the 2 medications. And so I'm off of those prescriptions. I don't have fatigue at all anymore. All the body right joint pain is gone. The brain fog is gone. And really the worst symptom I had before was I lost my zest for life. And that's really a dark, bad place to be in. And that was probably the worst symptom of all. And now I get up every day and I can't wait to hit the ground running, and literally too. That's my new thing at the gym. I'm starting to run. But yeah, so it's fantastic. And I like to be a story of hope, because there's so many women my age in their mid 50s or even in their 40s that are not getting any answers and being told they're fine. And their family members look at them like they're nuts sometimes and think they're, just faking it. And, and I get that there's a lot of mindset things involved here, and, I'm all for it, but the conventional doctors were starting to tell me that I needed counseling and things like that. And I'm 100% for counseling, been there, done that, but I just knew there was a physical root issue. So, and actually there were several, it was not just one thing. So that's, my story. And that's why I'm pretty much a zealot now for anyone who will care to listen about my transformation.
Well, this story seems so common, and these terms are bantered around. You hear a lot of people getting diagnosed with Hashimoto's and chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue and autoimmune. And I'm just curious, why do you think it's so common? And how did you, in particular, start feeling these things in your 30s? Like, do you think it was strongly diet related, or how did you get into this mess?
Yeah, I think, well, diet was a very big key for me. I was a vegetarian for many years, thinking I was serving my body well. And I was actually a pretty healthy vegetarian. I mean, I ate some junk food here and there, but I had salads every day, tons of oatmeal, lots of whole wheat products, all of that. And that was a disaster for me. That was a disaster for my autoimmune conditions. And I know that can work for some people, and I know we're all different, but it did not serve me well. And I actually probably half of that time I was vegan, because I always strive to be vegan and I just couldn't get myself to do it. And I think that was my body's innate, intuition to say, don't do that. You need eggs, you need some, animal products in your life. So that was a big transition for me. And the second piece of that would be stress management and lifestyle, not putting enough attention on those kinds of things. And of course, with the fatigue, I wasn't moving at all. Like, I had no exercise in my life. And when I first started at the gym, I could hardly get up off the floor. Seriously, that's how bad it was with the body wide joint pain and just being out of shape. And I would not have gone to the gym had it not been for some kind soul that encouraged me to join a group class, of all things. That was the last thing I wanted to do. I didn't want to be embarrassed. And so it all mattered, but it did start with the nutrition piece for me. When I switched over to paleo-based diet, that was a game changer, 100%.
So you were vegetarian for how long?
Oh gosh, probably 20 years, well over
Right.
15 years. Yeah.
That goes back into your youth. And I suppose you were inspired by just being cleaner and maybe having some sustainability ideals and things like that are bantered around. I love how people now are countering that. Dr. Paul Saldino does a good job talking about sustainable agriculture and how a properly raised animal can have carbon sequestering effect, and that this whole thing is a lot of it's propaganda to stand there and think that avoiding animal products is making you a better citizen and also healthier. But I suppose in your case, and I want to go to that comment you made, that it can work for some people, which I think we're now seeing an explosion of insight that things are individual, and someone's diet, probably the people who are shouting most loudly about it, can work really well for them. But it is by definition a restrictive diet, and you're restricting a lot of the foods that are ranked as the most nutrient dense. So I suppose you got into a tailspin over a long period of time where you started to get the issues with depletion of certain key micronutrients. And how did that,
Oh,
what insight do you have there from unwinding this now?
yes, that was a tough one because I did belong to the, animal group organizations that protected animals, the vegan groups. I was a donor for all of them financially, and I was very wrapped up in it, 100%. And so that was hard to turn my mindset around that. And I'm so happy now that, like you had mentioned, there's people out there that are shedding light on the real truth about this. And that what can happen, what happens with a purely vegan or vegetarian diet, those aren't safe either. And then also the not to go too far sideways, but also how, like, a lot of people think chicken, when they do finally eat meat, they think chicken is the most clean. I'm talking about conventional.
Mm-hmm.
They think that's the best one. And actually, if you're going to buy conventional meat, the beef is your better choice, like for clean meat and humane things, and all the whole thing, really. And then as far as the micronutrient depletion, I had also osteopenia at a very young age, and that got my attention too. And
What is that?
osteopenia, it's the stage before osteoporosis.
Mm.
So my bones were already going to become brittle and weak. And I actually ended up with neck surgery. I had bulging discs. I've had steroid injections in my hip and my shoulders, all kinds of things. And I'm not, I can't prove it, but I'm quite sure if I had this way of living early on, I think I would have prevented that. And one of my doctors does feel that my vegan vegetarian lifestyle did contribute to those musculoskeletal things I had. I had shoulder surgery, and like I said, the neck surgery was the big one. That was like the final straw. That and my blood pressure kept going up, and I was about to go on a third medication, and that got my attention. So yes.
And during this time, you were adhering to this pretty strict plant-based diet, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I was always trying to be vegan. So I think maybe 50 to 60%.
Oh, that's a good
of
new
the time.
category, Barbara. I like that. You know how people
Yes.
say, "Oh, I'm carnivore-ish," or I'm animal-based, but not all the way. And so you're
Yes.
like a wannabe or trying to be vegan. That's a whole nother dietary category you just invented.
Right. Yes. Yes, that was me. And I was such a proponent of it. I would just be preaching about it all the time. So, so dogmatic. And then I had all this shame whenever I would eat cheese or eggs or anything like that on top of it. And I had to watch to help get me out of it, like a lot of YouTube videos of ex-vegans. I mean, thank God for them, just to get my head wrapped around it and, move in that direction. So yeah.
So what was the turning point? Did you come across a practitioner or have some sort of awakening from a book? And how did you start to say, hey, I'm going to junk this journey that hasn't worked well for me and try something new?
Yeah. And what happened was, I was getting so desperate. So I was trying everything. And believe me, I had all the vegan books and all the like I said, the subscriptions to vegan, influencers and doctors and things like that out there. And then I came across somebody local, a registered dietitian who worked for Dr. William Davis, the Wheat Belly author.
Oh, so you're in Wisconsin, Milwaukee area, which is where Dr. Davis is based, right?
That's right. That's right. And he didn't give the presentation, but she did. And it was called Delete the Wheat. And I had no idea what it was about. I didn't know it was going to be a paleo thing. And I went by myself, and she's going over all these meals, and every single one includes animal protein. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? But I actually listened to her, and I do like science. I was just blind to the other side of science. And I actually have a registered nurse background. Actually, I'm still an RN. So I like science. I'm a bit of a geek with that. So I listened to her. She did a great job of explaining things in nice, simple terms. And I thought, okay, fine, I'll give this a try. Somehow I ended up at this, in-person event, called Delete the Wheat. And I tried, so I went home, I bought some ground beef. Of all things, ground beef was my first entry. I think my body knew it needed it. And I made a taco salad, and it tasted fantastic. and I had no problem digesting it, because I know that's a big thing. A lot of vegetarians will say, like, you can't digest the food. Thankfully, I didn't wreck everything with my hydrochloric acid yet, I guess. But it went down, it was fine. But there was a lot of emotional, mental piece. Like I would talk myself out of it sometimes and, go back to eating all the grains and things like that. But I always felt better when I ate the paleo based diet. And so I'm so thankful for for that in-person event that I randomly went to and had no idea it was going to be, that kind of an event. And yeah, so that was the first step towards entering into this lifestyle that I have now. Yeah.
Wow, the describing of deprogramming those fixed and rigid beliefs is pretty heavy, because I think we all harbor those. And when something comes to challenge them, it's very, very difficult, whether it's changing your political party or your views on whether these silly masks are saving the planet or a violation of personal freedom. And I don't talk about those things on my shows on purpose, because I want to focus on our important topics. But these are great examples that are floating around now where, boy, you stuck to your path for so long that it's, and of course you did it for reasons of health and for of self-optimization. And now to knock those blocks over is a really tough challenge. I mean, I guess you were slapped in the face by feeling better after your ground beef. It's hard to ignore the symptoms, especially when you're going in there dragging your feet and saying, oh gee, I'm going to try this, but it's probably not going to work, or whatever's going on in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing now, with the views on it, it does get intense, the dietary things, even just within family members. I have to learn, especially since I'm such a zealot and my family members have seen my change in friends, but you can just see the veil over their eyes, like, oh, they have so much fat in it, or, that I don't eat red meat that often. And I'm very careful because I can tell, I've learned the hard way that they're not ready for a conversation. And I don't want to have waste their time or my time or get into an argument over it, because they're pretty set. But a lot of my clients, though, or people family and friends who do ask me, want to have a meaningful conversation with me about my transformation, it's usually because they're at a down and out place and they're willing. So same as me, I was down and out and I was just starting to become open to anything. I just was desperate. So I'm always thankful about that. So I'm always trying to learn how I can best gently approach the subject if I think someone's suffering, because I hate to see it. I see people randomly at the store or wherever, and I know they're my age and they look completely different than me, and they're just dragging, their eyes are lifeless. And I'm just thinking, it does not have to be that way. But then, you look in their cart, if it's at the grocery store, and they have all these foods that are, seemingly healthy, according to, what we might see on TV or the news and all of that. And I just, I have to hold back and just, have compassion for them, that they just don't know yet, how to solve their problems. Yeah.
Okay, so there's the down and out category, the desperation, where the person's really willing to try something and they're receptive. But short of that, what have you learned? What is your graceful approach to have that, that opening at the social gathering or something, and maybe someone asking you a few questions about your new career path, and then you either pounce and you see the eyes glaze over, or what has worked for you? Especially, we're going to talk about how you built your business, but bringing in a client is a major accomplishment, because again, it's people have difficulty departing from their fixed habits.
Yeah. So if it's at the dinner table at a family event, usually I try to go with what I call permission-based conversation, because I used to just say, here's the meal plan, and I would send it to them, and I would just basically shove the information down them. Here, I thought you would, I thought this might be of interest, and I'd send them a PDF, or I'll start talking about it. So now I'll ask them, would you like to know what I eat in a day, or would you like to know what my routine is, for the morning, or whatever it may be. So it's more permission-based, and I ask them if they would like to know. And I measure their response on that to see, watch their body language and things like that, just to see if they really want to have that conversation. And if I can tell they're very passionate about what they're currently doing, I usually would say, well, I'm really happy to, chat with you about that away from this event at a different time, if you like. There's a lot to say, about the subject. So I'm very, very permission-based. Like I ask them, would you like to know more? Would you like to know more about my transformation? Would you like to know more about
Would you
the
like to know more about
exercising.
my incredible, fantastic transformation?
Yes.
Look at me. Well, also, you changed your physique significantly. So I think
Mhm.
that's a pretty good business card, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. That had changed a lot. And I love that part of, well, I love all the parts about my transformation, but especially because I always say women who are older, can't gain muscle and things like that. And I've followed Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, and I understand now how important muscle is. And she was very integral as far as people who I followed when I started on this journey too. And, it's so important. And I had no muscle before. And like I said, I never worked out. I was never, even as a child, I never was athletic. And now I'm basically, I'm doing almost ready to do a pull up on my own without the band. I'm practicing pistol squats now. I'm using TRX for them, but my goal is to be able to do them without it. And now I'm just starting to do some things, some running. It's brand new for me. So I'd like to try to get to, my mile now. The best is over 9 minutes, but just to show like you can do it. And the that's another thing. I used to be very introvert. I wouldn't show anything on Facebook now, but now I do it not so much as not for bragging and to say, "Hey, look at me," but it's more of a message of you can do this too. Like if you would like to do that. In fact, I had someone reach out to me this morning, and we had a conversation, texting conversation about it. She wanted to know more. She goes, "Boy," she's about my age. She's like, "You're ripped," and so she was open to the conversation. And so I asked her, would you like to know what I do or what I eat and things like that? And she was open to it. And so I'm really hoping that she'll, make some changes. And I think she will. So that is, definitely something that shocks a lot of people when, they said, especially people who knew me before, people who know meet me now think I've always been fit. And it's like, no, that wasn't the case at all. I was an inflammatory mess, and plus I injured easily, so I had to be really careful. I started off very slow. I didn't dive in. I mean, sometimes with the bicep stuff, it was no weights, with some of the movements. So, or a 2-pound weight. That's it. So yeah, so I do that to be a message of hope and that anything is possible. So yeah.
So you became this hot, inflamed mess over years of, you're talking a lot about diet. Is there anything else that you feel like was adverse lifestyle practices that contributed to this demise and these conditions?
Yeah, mindset was huge. There was a lot of mindset work on my end in terms of, sense of worthiness, not feeling I deserve it. And just the world we live in is so negative, right? And I think we're just inherently negative as a protective thing, a primitive thing, just to keep us safe from the enemy tribe, if you will. But we have so much of it now, and then toss on top of it dings and all that on our phones, everything's an emergency or now. And I worked in the corporate world for many years, and that was always you're overworked, and it's a lean staff. They're always pushing the envelope with that. And so it's just like it's the mindset I had was so negative all the time. And that really made a huge difference for me. I wish I would have put mindset practice in earlier on, like in the beginning. I think that would have helped me with my journey, for sure, because then I would start to have the shame. Like if I would eat the meat, like I said, that was a process. So sometimes I'd be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And I would go vegan for a couple of weeks just because I had so much shame about it. Where if I had the right mindset that I'm doing this to fuel my body because I love my body, it'd make a big difference. And actually I do, there are a couple of clients, and, one in particular comes to mind, right now, that we didn't even touch nutrition for the first 6 weeks. And she came to me for weight loss, not for like life coaching or anything else. It was mainly for weight loss, just because she had so much self-loathing and things like that. And there was no way she was going to, have these massive, for her it was massive dietary changes, and her mind needed to get right. So yeah, she and now she's doing great. Now she's like, doing a stellar job and feeling great. No more pain, losing weight, kind to herself, puts herself, first when it comes to health. And yeah, so it's mindset's a big piece. A lot, at least with the audience or the followers that I'm attracting, the mindset is a big deal. Yeah.
Boy, I mean, it's a difficult catch-22 in a way, because you're not going to have this glowing mindset if you feel like crap all the time either.
Right.
And
Right.
you're not going to love yourself too well if you're tired and inflamed all the time.
Yes, and that's what it's so it's also connected, and that's it's just such a beautiful harmony because when you fix your gut, your neurotransmitters come alive. Now you're
Mm,
producing serotonin and dopamine, and now you feel like a human being and you're happy again. So you can't like that. That's where the physical part comes in. So it's you can only do the mindset will go so far, just like the physical piece will just go so far. When you have them all together, when you have the nutrition, the mindset, the lifestyle, and the movement, all it's a perfect harmony. You need it all to just so you can function optimally as a human being and think optimally too, as well. But yeah, I do impress upon my clients or any family or friends that'll listen about how important it is to heal the gut, because if you don't have that, your poor body's not making those neurotransmitters
mm.
that it needs. Plus, you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need to absorb. So of course you feel terrible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the gut-brain connection, which probably anyone's eyes would glaze over 10 years ago, is now an emerging field of medicine.
Yeah.
What is it? 80% of serotonin is made in the gut, and it has such a
Hmm.
huge function on our brain chemistry.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And then to tail on to that would be the glyphosate on the foods. It was Dr. Stephanie Senoff that talks about how glyphosate interferes with the pathway that makes the serotonin. And so with the glyphosate and like wheat being double sprayed, so if you're vegan and eating a ton of wheat and it's not organic, and it's questionable too, even if it is organic, that some of that's come over, but you're overdosing your body with this glyphosate. Well, no wonder nobody feels good. No wonder there's so many prescriptions for SSRIs and things like that out there. I'm not saying stop them, and I'm not saying don't take them. I'm 100% for Western medicine when needed. But my goodness, when you think about it, that gut is so important. When you're interrupting all those pathways, it does make a difference. It's an incredible, incredible.
So it sounds like your long-term adherence to this grain-based vegetarian slash wannabe vegan diet, you got depleted because you
Mhm,
were eliminating a lot of nutritious foods. And then secondly,
mhm,
it sounds like you had some leaky gut condition from
mhm.
all the gluten and all the things that are
Yeah.
discussed at length in Wheat Belly and other books. And so now, not only are you devoid of nutrition,
Mhm.
whatever you're getting is not being absorbed well because of the inflammation of the gut. You want to talk about how
Yeah.
that came into the mix with eventually your diagnosis and how you healed that.
Yeah, yeah. And not only, on top of all that, with getting the sicknesses and feeling fatigue, constant fatigue and the joint pain, I also gained about 30, 35 pounds, of unwanted weight too. But I was feeling so poorly that I got to a point where I just didn't care about the weight. And just a side note about the weight, I did go on popular weight loss programs and I did lose the weight 3 times and I gained it back all 3 times. And all 3 times I was still, had my high blood pressure medicine. I still had joint pain. I still felt crappy. The only thing that was different was I could fit in smaller jeans, which is nice, but it wasn't lasting. And I was hungry all the time because your body's just starved for that nutrition. So when I got like the osteopenia diagnosis and was starting to get super frustrated about the doctors not hearing me and just constantly telling me my thyroid is fine, to eat less, exercise more, not even taking into account what I was eating. And if they did have anything to say about eating, they would say, go eat whole wheat and things like that, whole grains. It was the worst advice in the world. And that inflammation, I'm surprised I was able to think my way out of it and like attend that event with Dr. Williams, the Delete the Wheat event by his registered dietitian. And yeah, so it was a desperation point really. And actually, I went through a couple of different functional medicine providers, integrated providers, before I found the one that turned over the right rock. So, that's another thing too. If you feel like you're not getting answers from your doctor, even if they're integrative and functional medicine, you keep going until the rocks get turned. It's not that they're doing anything wrong; they're just not turning over enough rocks for you. And they want to solve the problem, but so that's another thing I did too. I changed doctors. And for somebody like me, where before I was such a people pleaser kind of person, it was
Mm.
very hard to do that. But I found the courage to, say, sorry, I need to move to a different doctor and move on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because the medical industry is so well established. There's such a tremendous level of trust.
Mhm.
And I'm curious how the physicians that you saw were dispensing dietary advice and what you think about that in general.
Yeah. They, not one of them, recommended well, before the functional medicine doctors, did, but they weren't identifying my Lyme disease. That was a big thing. They identified the Hashimoto's, but the genetic detox issues I have and the heavy metals, that wasn't diagnosed by the first couple of functional medicine providers, integrative medicine providers. And finally, when the Lyme and the detox genetics were um, identified, that made a big difference for me, because then I knew what I was dealing with and where to target. But before that, the conventional medicine doctors would basically say, don't eat, red meat, if at all, eat whole grains, oatmeal is fine. And I was always hungry, on that diet too. And it didn't matter how
Mm,
many beans or anything I ate, I was never satisfied. And I think all those years where I didn't have fat,
mm,
and it's amazing how well my body does with fat. And I'm not keto because I tend to like a lot of carbs. I work out hard too, so I ate a lot of carbs and things. I just like blueberries and stuff. I'll just say it. I like my complex carbs, but my non-processed carbs, I should say. But it was never any advice. And then they would say, I remember even at the first appointment, I think I was 33, and the doctor saying, well, we all get tired when we're older. And it's like, 33 years old, are you kidding? I want to have babies soon, like that. Like I'm still young yet. And it's interesting now at 57, I feel so much better than even before, when before I got ill and things came to a head for me. So it's amazing. If you give the body the things that it needs, it definitely will do it. But yeah, it's unfortunate with the conventional doctors. I still hear that to this day from people, that they'd say, well, I follow a good diet. I bought this
mm,
not low fat or no fat
mm.
cream cheese and sugar-free jelly and put it on a piece of, whole wheat toast. And I'm like, oh, that's a disaster.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
widely regarded as being healthy, and same with vegetarian veganism has a tremendous reputation in
Yeah.
general society as being superior to the average Joe who's just driving up to a fast food joint.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I wonder how long it's going to take to unwind some of these things, particularly that a medical professional who's highly trained in the areas that you
Mhm.
might very well need desperately so when you have a disease, but they're still
Right.
dispensing dietary advice, which they not necessarily have any training or knowledge in. And that's
Right.
where I don't know how we got to this point where someone who has no expertise, it's like going to get your car fixed and taking some notes about dietary recommendations from the
Right.
mechanic. It's no different. And I hope I'm not offending. And if I am offending any physicians, hey, write in, email us, tell us how you feel. But some of the physicians, because of their immersion into medical science and the human body, are tremendous resources for diet and health expertise. Some of them who have a different opinion than people on the other side. There's still a strong support for vegetarian veganism and doing it properly, and getting your supplements that you need if you're going to have a restrictive diet, and all that stuff's
Mhm.
wonderful. But for those who have no knowledge and no background to dispense dietary advice, that's who I'm going to call out right now and say,
Yeah.
come on, just shut your mouth and
Yeah.
suggest that your patient go and educate themselves further about diet, perhaps. And maybe if you're interested, since you see patients all day, maybe you could also educate yourself further before you give advice.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It drives me crazy, when I hear about, the doctors, I'm saying, and also how, the plant protein is fine and they're just
Right.
convinced of this. And, and it's like the proof is, just look at the people just following even a paleo diet. There's countless people worldwide that have gotten off diabetes medicine, blood pressure medicines, and, all kinds of things. And they're doing fantastic. And it's many blessings to the doctors that have taken the time to educate themselves beyond medical school and residency. There's so many of them. Well, like, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, she's got tons of education post the regular medical school, Dr. Campbell, all of them, that took the extra time. Or my person, I have two doctors that, I see now that they take the additional time, and it's unfortunate it's not taught in their program. And I get that. But like you said, if you don't know it, don't dispense it. Like, don't dispense that as a prescription, food advice, for sure. No, absolutely. And another one too is that, and I had high blood pressure and, was on, like I said, 2 medications for it, just to keep it at high normal. And another thing is the salt thing, when they say decrease your salt.
Mm,
And isn't it like there's just like a small percent of people, per the author of the Salt Fix, that are salt sensitive, that where it truly does affect their blood pressure. So why would you tell everybody that when it only affects a small percent of people, when they have that genetic, propensity, for salt to bother them? And so that was another thing too. I'd starved myself of salt, of all my
mm,
minerals. And I wonder if
mm.
my, hair wouldn't grow, my nails, and just, well, I had osteopenia, like I mentioned. So that was another necessary component, added back in my life. And now I salt everything pretty liberally, and I do really well. Yeah.
Right. I think a lot of this information is 30, 40, 50 years old, and it's what was known back then and is still
Yeah.
printed in the textbooks or the rigid, straightforward education that's dispensed that takes so long to evolve. And
Yeah.
so when we're saying cut back on your eggs because your cholesterol is too high, that's what was believed in the rudimentary research from 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And now we know that you manufacture whatever cholesterol you need, and your dietary cholesterol has no association with blood cholesterol, per the Framingham study, the longest and largest, most
Yeah.
respected epidemiological study of all time. But if that's kind of causing someone to blank over, back to our context, find another doctor if you make some quips like that, and
Yeah.
they get shot down. But I like some of your quick comments. I want to ask you more
Mhm.
about why is the chicken ranked below the beef when we're talking about the health consequence of eating meat, and then second, what about these plant proteins and how they compare to a complete protein from an animal source?
Right, right. Well, first of all, my understanding is that all beef, even conventional beef, that they do, the cattle do have time outside. So right there, they have some time outside. So the fresh air and sunshine, just like for people, it's very necessary, and it makes a difference, for you for sure. So they do have that time. And then also, one cattle can produce a lot of meat. One, cow can, where chickens are, I have a hard time watching them, but I saw a documentary about that, and I only watched a few pieces of it, but where they're just cramped together, they're not, fed right at all. Where at least the cattle, like I said, they do have some natural part of their life is
Mm,
semi-natural, where the chickens, it's totally not. And chickens are, they eat grubs and worms and things like that. They're certainly not vegetarians. Oh, and that drives me crazy when I see eggs at the store and they say, vegetarian fed. I'm like, stay away from those at all costs. It's not a good egg. So, but yeah, they're, cramped together, and they're not, they're definitely not getting anything that would mirror what they would do out in, if they were natural, out in the world or out in the farm, wherever. And as far as plant protein goes, the absorption rate, well, first of all, I can't remember the amino acid. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon's really good with this stuff. She's, of course, the expert. But, there's a certain, I think it's lysine. It's very tough to get from the plant proteins. And then also, if you are going the plant protein route, to get the amount of the certain amino acids that you need, you would need a ton of beans, like a lot. And then let's think about like what happens to the rest of your body when you're doing it, like the blood sugar consequence and things like that, if you did manage to eat all of these beans. And I know she's got a really good chart comparing like what an adequate protein source is. And then there's a question of, even if you're going to absorb them, with lectins and things like that in the way, you might not absorb them at all. And that's my case,
mm.
because I actually, I ate a lot of food as a vegetarian vegan, and I kept, eating and eating and eating. So it wasn't because I wasn't eating, quote, enough beans. I wasn't absorbing any of that protein to any meaningful capacity. No.
Yeah, much more difficult to absorb. I think Paul Saudino had a quip about you're eating the plant, or you can eat the animal that ate those plants and digested them and converted them into a perfectly formed protein with the same biological machinery as the human. So you're just kind of going up the food chain to
Yeah.
get a higher quality protein when we're comparing plant proteins to an animal-based protein. And then
Yeah.
with the cow, right, that's such an interesting point. Like all cattle are grass-fed for most of their life, and then they go into the feedlot and they're grain fed and they're fed all
Mhm.
that crappy stuff that the chicken gets too. But as a ruminant animal, right, with their four
Mhm.
stomachs or whatever they have,
Yeah.
they can better handle this nasty food that they get at the end of their life in a far superior manner to the chicken or the pork, who have these elevated profiles of the unwanted fatty acids in their blood
Yeah.
because of their feedlot raising. And the cow is not optimal either, but you're much more protected from those adverse nutritional profiles when you're choosing meat. And then if you're choosing grass-fed or 100% grass-fed, if you can find it, or an alternative animal like the buffalo, the bison, and some of that less popular stuff, then you're doing really well. But that's an interesting one to kind of correct when people are saying, well, I don't eat red meat. And they say it with that tone of voice, like, I'm pretty healthy. I don't eat red meat. I just eat chicken and fish. Oh, good for you. And then let's look at half the fish that are offered in the market, where how they score on Monterey Bay Aquarium Food Watch. And a lot of them are unsustainable. They have those heavy metal concentrations and things that you should never eat certain fish. And so, boy, just go get your ground beef like Barbara did, sit down and go to town, try it out.
Yeah. And chickens too, if I understand correctly, if I read this correctly, they have a lot of arsenic in them too, so speaking of bad things, like who wants to overdose on that? That's another thing. But yeah, go get that ground beef. You won't be sorry, for that for sure. But yeah, it's such a, chicken's really just a poor quality meat. And even now, like when I eat chicken, I'm not nearly as satiated. I do eat it. I enjoy some chicken dishes and things like that, for sure. But and turkey and things like that. But the beef is what's most satisfying for me. And I don't limit it, and that's another thing. If people either are told not to eat it or eat it very little, and that drives me crazy. And but also is interesting is like, the cows, like you said, with the multiple stomachs, that their whole digestion is different. And so a lot of times the vegan advocates compare to, a heavy plant animal, eating animal, or a cow that, is an herbivore. It's like, no, they're they process it completely different. We can't be compared to them. We're a different animal, simply put, and we just can't do that. And so it's very important. Like for me, it's for my clients, it's very important that they eat animal protein, for sure, to help them, to give them the nutrients that they need, because usually they're pretty down and out by the time they come to me, for help. So, they do need that. So, or at least eggs for sure, 100%.
So how did you heal that leaky gut, and what did it feel like to come back from chronic inflammation? I assume digestive pain and a lot of things that are associated with leaky gut.
Yeah, I had a lot of bloating. I had a lot of symptoms that weren't digestive, but the one I had was bloating and things like constipation, and that all resolved pretty quickly. One of the big things when my gut was healed, and it took time, it wasn't overnight. I did have some benefits right away, but some other things took some, longer periods of time. But it was like a veil was lifted over my eyes, and it's back to that gut brain connection. The veil was just lifted. I felt like a human being again, like I had energy and all of that. And it was almost like a drug, and I didn't realize, I knew I didn't feel well. And I knew that, I was ill, that there was some physical component, but I forgot how good it felt to be well. Like it was, just, if anything, do it for the mental health. Yeah. The losing the weight is great. And don't get me wrong, fantastic. I'm glad I did. And I've easily kept it off, by the way. I'm never hungry. I'm never starving. It's probably from all that red meat I eat. Right. But but seriously, I'm never hungry or starving, because I'm getting the nutrition that I need, because the stomach is absorbing everything. You get more bang for your buck when you do that. And, just that mental piece is huge, huge. I got to a point where, at the end of my career at my corporate job, I was having to write down things or put important things in 3 different areas. And that's another thing. People say, oh, we all get like that when we get older. And I just want to say, just because something's common, or if someone says, oh, that's common, we all get that, doesn't make it normal or right. Don't accept it. Like, move on to the next doctor or to the next thing. But I would have to write, a Post-it note to be in my electronic calendar, put on a Post-it note, put it on another calendar. And I was able to get away with it. No one picked up on it, but I was really losing my mind, so my sharpness. Yeah. That was kind of scary. I even went and got a brain, a cognitive test done, just to make sure, because I thought, this is serious stuff. You hear about Alzheimer's, and, I thought I better get a baseline. It came out okay. So I'm happy about that. but that's how worried I got about that brain. So when the gut was healed, that made a huge difference for me personally in my brain for sure. I haven't had a follow-up scan on my bones. It'd be interesting to do that because, like I said, I did have the osteopenia for the bone density, and so I need to get that rechecked just really for fun, just to see where I'm at. Yeah.
So the exercise didn't come in until quite a ways down the
Mhm.
road of your healing. Tell us how that slotted in there.
Yeah. Well, in the brain, the pathways that you set in your brain are so solid, really. So I had this fatigue brain. So I got used to not moving and not doing anything.
Mm.
It was easy to sit on the couch. And even though I was healed, it was easy to get dopamine hits and things like that from watching Netflix or whatever. And, scrolling social media, things like that. So I knew I needed to move around and I was feeling up for it because I had the nutrition dialed in, the lifestyle was better. And like, this is time for me to start moving in. But I was afraid of getting injured because I had the neck surgery with the disc fusion and
Mm.
the shoulder surgery and cortisone injections in my hip. So I was afraid to move really. And it's like I said, one friend, nice, kind soul, encouraged me to go to the gym with her, literally walk me through the door, with that. And I was blessed with a place that they do a lot of modifications for you. So if you don't have to be, if when you do a group class, they'll challenge you, but then if you don't need to be challenged, they'll give you what you need. And so I did that. And the trainer that I did some personal training just to make sure I did things correctly. He had a physical therapy background. He wasn't a physical therapist, but an assistant. So he was very, um, keen on me doing the exercises right. He was very, honed in on that.
Mm.
So I was blessed with that. And I just started slow. And I just would, if I would start to hurt something, I would just give it time. Like I didn't rush back into it. And I was a bit impatient at first because it was a bit of a grind at first. I was getting, a bit impatient, like, gosh, why can't I do that? Like, why can't I do that? But if you just stay with it, those small steps, and that's another thing with all of those things with healthy habits. If anything, start with small steps and build
Mm.
up over time. And for me with exercise, it was safe to do it that way and it was effective. And now, I do all kinds of things, at the gym. It's amazing. It's just amazing. I can't believe it sometimes myself. And I enjoy it. Now it's a new fun thing for me. I never thought I would say that ever in my life that I enjoy fitness and that I
Mm.
have certain goals now and, that are fitness related. So yeah.
Yeah, you have to break through when it's difficult and frustrating and probably fatiguing when you first start out,
Mhm.
and then get to that point where it's invigorating. What kind of stuff do you do? What's your schedule like?
Yeah. Well, currently I do group class 4 days a week. And the reason why I like the group class is because, well, first of all, they design them really well. You can modify as needed within the classes. And the gym I go to, the trainers all get together, the coaches, and they come up with the plan for the group classes the next week. So it's not just one person, it's a lot of, a few different people that are designing them. And then also I sometimes have a bit of a lazy brain, so I don't have to think, I just do. And so that's kind of nice too. I've been kind of guilty of that all along, truth be told, with my fitness journey. I get a little lazy and like, what was that exercise called again? What's that called again? And anyway, I have something to say about that in a minute, but so I do group classes and they're different themes. Like one's base, which is general, one's build, which I love, it's building the muscles, of course. And then one is burn. So I do 2 burns a week in a build and a base. And then also I do pull-up practice. And right now I'm working on lower body because that's been more of a, I don't want to say weakness, but I've neglected it. My upper body's fine. I just need to maintain that. But I was doing a lot of upper body work before. I love the weights. I love that stuff. Endurance is, or the aerobic stuff I'm still working on. I tend to, I don't want to say I tire out easy, but I've been so focused on the weightlifting, I kind of let the other things go. So I do like to mix it up with a little bit of everything. I don't want to be just stuck on, one area. And that's what those classes help me with, that because they actually force my hand to do different things. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, geez, you said you're near a 9-minute mile, which is spectacular. At your age, the Cooper Institute has wonderful data asserting that one's time in the mile run at age 50 is strongly predictive of their longevity and their health
Oh, wow.
span, and
Wow.
their chances of living, feeling healthy and strong to age 80. And the superior category at age 50 is sub 9 for the female and sub 8 for the male. and then it goes to in the needs to improve category, and then in the the danger category would be like worse than 13 minutes, worse than 12 minutes for a male at age 50. So you're
Nice.
past that mark, and you're probably in the superior category if you're under 10. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting to note that this is rated as better than blood panels to predict someone's future. And there's also similar research with squat competency, push-up competency. There's a great study with firefighters. Grip strength is strongly correlated with longevity. There's a great study out of
Wow.
Hawaii. And so if you're getting in and putting work in, it's contributing as good as anything else to all those
Oh,
goals that we have to age gracefully.
gosh, I love those numbers. I did not know about any of that. That's fantastic. And my whole goal is to do reverse and aging, because I aged not just aesthetically, but physiologically so much from
Yeah,
all those years of illness. So now I'm
yeah,
in this big thing of, I'm not in denial. I actually think it's fun. The older I get, the more I do, it's kind of a
yeah.
fun internal competition with myself, and like I turned 58 in June. So I'm like, I'd want to do this, this, and this by the time I'm 58. So it's an internal competition, but those numbers are fantastic. Like I had no idea about that. That's excellent. That is
Something
so
to shoot
good.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Just, yeah, I have to, gosh, I love that. That's so good. And speaking of fitness, I do want to, because I mentioned before, I have a bit of a lazy brain with the fitness. I kind of just follow along, and I really need to be a bit more sharp about that. So I do want to look at getting a fitness certification. And I heard on one of your podcasts that you're coming up with one. So I am going to hold off until
Get
I
ready,
see yours.
people. Get ready. The Primal
Yeah,
Fitness certification is coming soon.
cool.
It's very comprehensive. It's an incredibly diverse, type of content where we're not just talking about how to lift the weights in the gym, but we're integrating all manner of healthy living and lifestyle practices. So I think you and
Nice.
the other coaches and people interested in fitness are going to love it.
Yeah.
So you started feeling better. You lost your 30 pounds, kept it off. Your life
Mhm.
turned around. And then tell us about how you got into the business of helping others.
Yeah. Well, I've always, I've always liked helping people. And then when I was a clinic nurse, when I worked on the clinic side of things, in the hospital, a clinician side of things, I didn't care for it. And I got out of the clinic side of things pretty early on without knowing that that deep down, I was more into integrative, gets root cause. And I just remember just hanging, these IV antibiotics over and over for like these young people that were just not getting any better. It was so discouraging. And it was just, it broke my heart. And so I went into the admin side of things with my nursing background. I worked in compliance and things like that. And yeah, hospitals are a business. That was my job for many years, was to make sure we got our money. So we won't get into the COVID thing with that. But anyway, yeah.
I like when they
And,
came in when I was still recovering from surgery and under the effects of anesthesia, and someone came in to check on me, and it was from the billing department,
oh,
and they wanted
goodness.
my $1,000 copay. And I'm
Oh my
like,
God.
why don't you talk to me when I'm recovered? Get out of my room now.
Yeah.
It was
Oh my
so offensive.
gosh. There's
I mean, I
that.
know it's a business, but I just had to throw that in there because I'm like, wait a second,
Yeah.
this is why you're here. You're checking, and they're very, she came in really sweet. Hi, how you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. The
Yeah.
IV's in nicely, and everything's fine. Well, I'm here to collect your money. I'm like, oh my God,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. And you were just coming out from under. There's some things like in that about not getting signatures or anything from people while they're on drugs, like in the
Oh, maybe
hospital,
I
like
should have signed away. Here,
yeah,
go
see
ahead,
what it
charge me, and then challenge the
yeah,
transaction later.
that would have been a big deal. Yeah, for sure. That's like, one of the broken rules that shouldn't be broken. But oh my gosh, but I'm not surprised. And that's so sad, for sure, absolutely. But I always knew, I wanted to help people. And then when I worked in the corporate setting, I got so sick. I was just a machine. Like I just worked and went home and slept. And then I had
Mm.
a mother who was very ill off and on for 5 years, that lived in the Chicago area. So that was a 2-hour commute each time. And, that's all I did. And I had a bad time with boundaries too. So that's another mindset piece that was real important for me, because I had no boundaries, with that. But what the beauty is with the health coaching is I'm back to where I can help people and really help them, yeah, at the level where, they can definitely make improvements in their life and not be a band-aid, and of course I had my own transformation. So I am like a triple zealot when it comes to this stuff, and especially, people who are really down and out and lost hope. So those are the people who I want to reach. I really have a passion for people not suffering for 15, 20 years like I did, at all. Like, let's narrow that window. That would be good.
Yeah.
You don't have
Yeah.
to lose your life, because now, yeah, I'm enjoying my life, and I'm quote making up for lost time. Like I said, I'm, in a race against myself all the time with things, trying to reverse that aging, that accelerated aging that occurred. And but I really don't want people to get that far, and
Right.
and there is always hope, but sometimes when things get so far, you can mitigate symptoms, but you have a much better chance if you get in there early on, for sure.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
did you detox from the heavy metal accumulation that you were
Yeah.
found to have?
That's a tough one. The big thing for me is to not let more bad things in. So I'm very selective about, like, I drink coffee and I eat strawberries. So those are highly pesticide, those have a lot of pesticide in those crops. So those I do organic for sure. I did have over 40 IV chelation treatments. And, I did do the follow-up labs, and it did move it somewhat, a little bit, but I was still in the highly elevated ranges.
Mm.
So and that can be really tough on your kidneys. And so my thing for detox now would be more things like activated charcoal. That's a big one, for me for sure. And mostly not letting more in. I just don't get rid of the metals like a regular person. I know we all have metals in our body. I'm just not excreting them like other people. So the heavy metals, I will probably go back into the IV stuff again. They would give me like IV glutathione and B12 to help me along, because it was really rough on my body and I would get really tired. And when I was first doing that, that was in the early stages of my transformation. So I was still tired, with that. And I'm doing it under the care of a physician who knows what she's doing, with this stuff. So it's totally safe, for me. But interestingly, like, I'll really burn it at the gym. My heart monitor, I watch it closely because I don't want to stay in the red zone too long. I have an aneurysm too, so I need to make sure, like, I keep all that in check. But I'll burn, like, they'll have a special burn class on Thanksgiving morning. And I remember I burned like 900 calories and I barely sweat. And my hair looked the same and everything. And everyone's dripping wet. That's not normal though. So now I am starting to sweat more, which is good. And that's what I like about the running too, because that's when I actually do start building up a sweat, when I get at it like that. So I know that's really important, for a
Mm.
detox too. I wanted to do infrared sauna, but I'm not sure about having the titanium in my neck now, and I can't find an answer about that. If that would get too hot near my spinal cord. I know that's a strange thing
Wow, I'd never
to be
heard of
concerned
that.
about, but I'm just worried about that. So I am going to look at the red light therapy as the next tool, because this will be an ongoing thing for me. So I do need to keep up with that. The longer we live, the more metals we're going to get in our body. And for me, it's just more so than a person who doesn't have those genetic detox issues. Yeah.
So when you have a client, I assume mostly or entirely remote, where you're working with them from different cities, and how does that relationship work?
Yeah, it's really good. I'm an online coach, so everything's online, but some people are local. I did have a couple local people where, we can get together after COVID, when people felt more safe, to have a lunch when the establishments were open and things like that again, and have coffee, or meet for a walk. Sometimes I've had walking coaching sessions, but otherwise it's online. And what it is I generally do 12-week programs. I don't do the short programs anymore. I used to, and I just feel like true transformation does take time. And I'm not against 21-day programs. They're great kickstarts and things like that. But I really want to be with somebody to get them really going on those habits and get them established. So 12-week is my minimum. And then I have retention clients too that will stay on. If someone has over 100 pounds to lose, or over 60 pounds of weight to lose, and a lot of other issues, it's a slow going process. And losing weight the right way, of course, it's going to be slower. It's going to be, lasting, that's the good part of it, but it'll be slower. And just to get those habits ingrained, because the wheels do fall off the bus. Most of my clients are very busy. They have no time to spare. They're moms, grandmoms with full-time, executive jobs, and just busy all the time, with that. But we do meet once a week, whether it's on Zoom, a call, however they want to do it. We have a check-in once a week for every week of the 12 weeks. And then I do have an app. It's not my own app that I created. It's one I subscribe to that has healthy habits in it. We designed the healthy habits, customize them to that particular client. And you decide also what the non-negotiables are going to be, because sometimes the wheels fall off the bus. Well, they're guaranteed to. At some point they're going to. And that's the whole point of learning how to still maintain a healthy lifestyle while you're going through all the bad stuff that's going to come up,
Mm.
in your life, for sure. And so you just need to keep that momentum, pick a few things that are non-negotiable. And then we do text check-ins daily, especially for the beginning clients. So that way my hands, fingers always on the pulse, if you will, and it does make a difference to have someone that is watching in a non-judgmental way. I had a client that did just recently. She did the 12-week program and came back, to resume. She said she just needs the accountability, and it's not a bad thing. Like, it doesn't make you like a less of a strong person or anything. It just, our brains are powerful and society's powerful. Like, it's easy to gravitate. Like, it took me a long time to walk in the grocery store. They have all the bakery goods right there. I used to be a sugar addict too. Plus I was so tired. So the sugar would give me that 2 minutes of energy. I would buy that stuff and eat it like on the way home and throw the garbage away before I walked in the house, so no one knew I had it, things like that. So I know that takes a long time, to get over. So there's no, guilt or shame in someone needing to spend more than 12 weeks, for sure. This is a life-changing journey, really. And so it's like 3 months to get the habit set down, and then 3 additional months for it to become a lifestyle, is generally speaking. Yeah.
I love it. And you've been through it. So the
Yeah.
client has instant comfort and openness with you. It's great. It's amazing what you're doing. Tell us how we can connect further with you and learn more about your operation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my website is dailywellnessforyou.com, and you can reach me through there. There's a good way to connect with me, just, the contact button on that webpage. Or I'm on Facebook just with my name, Barbara Diaz DeLeon. I think there's just a few of us in this world. I'm probably the only blonde one, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, that's my husband's last name, not mine. And then also I have a group, a Facebook group that's pretty active called Primal and Pink. And right now I'm doing the challenge right now with the ladies. That one's for ladies only. I tend to work with women, but so that group that I have is for the ladies. But probably the best way would be dailywellnessforyou.com. And I can get a 7-day meal plan from there that comes automatically with subscribing to my email. And and I'm happy to chat anytime. I do a lot of discovery calls and things like that, as a courtesy, without charging, just to get people on the right path. Find
Right.
out
Nothing to lose, people.
Yeah,
Good
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Barbara Diaz DeLeon, thank you so much for spending time with us and talking us through your amazing journey. Keep up the good work. And if anyone scoffed when she's talking about trying to reverse the aging, by almost every literal biological definition, you are younger and healthier than that person who was suffering at age 30, 37, 38.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And you can keep going, keep carrying the torch for anti-aging.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Dun, 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 dun.